Hey there everybody, and today I want to talk to you about how being available 24/7 could be detrimental to your mental health. Hey there everybody, my name's Dave, aka Mindset by Dave, and for the past 4.5 years I've been a mindset and mental health coach helping people get unstuck with whatever it is that's holding them back up here. That has actually led me down the path of essentially what this video is speaking out against, is being available 24/7. If you want to catch me in the places I am available, there is twitch.tv/mindsetbydave where I stream and people can come in and have mental health chats, and there is also the Discord server which is linked down below where you can chat to me in between times, but at respectable times, as you will see coming through on the rest of this video. So the idea of being available 24/7 is something that has kind of grown organically over the past sort of 15, 20, maybe even slightly longer years. I have the benefit, if you want to call it that, of being one of the older content creators out there. Don't let them all know, but I'm actually nearly 40. Shh. And as a result of being slightly older, I have grown through certain evolutions of what we now call social media, but what I would actually say the evolution of communication. Now, each level of communication comes with different sets of expectations. If you've not seen it already, I would definitely recommend checking out my Filling in the Blanks video, which I will link above. Filling in the Blanks video is all about how from the house phone, the landline, and to the mobile phone or cell phone, our expectations around the interaction there has changed radically. But there's been so many other things along the way that have changed the expectations on how available we should be. Now, if we look back to before email, then if you called a person, your choice was to call, let's see if they answer. If they do, great, you chat. If they don't, you go about and get on with your life. You didn't expect a person to be sat waiting by the phone 24 hours a day in order for your call. We all kind of had expectations and boundaries back then that, you just don't call someone at like 2 o'clock in the morning unless it's an absolute emergency. Then came MSN, was probably one before that. But MSN was one of the first ones that I remember. I'm trying to think if there was one before that. I think there was one before that, and I can literally hear the little noise that came through whenever you had a new message before that. If anyone knows the name of that, pop it in the comments because it's going to drive me crazy that I can't remember. But what these apps brought with them was an online status. An online status which is, I am here, I am available to chat. We never knew before whether a friend was available to a chat, and we never expected them to be available to chat 24 hours of the day. Now, with the advent of the new technology, and I call it new technology, this came out when I was 15, so we're talking like 23 years ago, you could then see when a person was online. And if you saw that a person was online, then you knew that they were available. Now, if you message that person and they don't get back to you now, we've got friction. We've got a problem. So as a result of that, because people don't want to create problems within the relationship, the person at the other end now, any new messages that come through, they feel the pressure in order to respond to you. And it's not just you, potentially, that's reaching out to that person. And now this is, 90s technology, but what about the things that came next? Well, with things like MSN, you had them only on your laptop or your computer. And it's very rare that you'd take that thing with you, even with a laptop, because Wi-Fi wasn't readily available and all that stuff. You'd close that, you'd shut it, and you'd have a section of your life where it's expected and understood that right now you're not available. And then came the mobile, the cell phone. Well, the cell phone itself, yeah, okay, send someone a text message. Even if we go before smartphones, I know there were phones that didn't have cameras in them. But if we go before smartphones, you have text messages. Now we see a new level of access. Oh, a person can give me a quick text back in their break at work. Or, they'll sneakily text back under the table in college. Whatever it might be. It wasn't like you were expecting a person to, in the middle of a lecture at college, to answer their landline. But now the expectation is there, and we kind of capitulate and we kind of go along. And as a result, the boundaries and the expectations get reset and reset. But then, when the cell phone upgraded to the smartphone, now all of those apps that you were on or you were off, that you had times where you were available and you had times that you weren't, and that was okay. You could separate the two. If you were ever feeling like overwhelmed by the communication, or if you ever felt like you just wanted some time to yourself, you close the app and there you go. No one's none the wiser. But then you get the mobile. Now it shows you were available 5 minutes ago. You were last online 26 seconds ago. And people will then message you through all of these different spaces. People now have the expectations that they can get hold of anybody any time of the day. And if these expectations are reciprocal and everybody's happy with those expectations, then this is great. This is cool. But chances are, if you're watching this video, it's not working out for you. Now, I can only vouch for how my brain works in this situation. I've spoken to a bunch of other people about this, and a lot of people seem to agree. But the way my brain works in this is the second I see a message come through, even if I don't have time to respond to it at that moment in time, it sets off a little flag. It opens up a little tab up here. It becomes another thing on the to-do list. And again, if that's something that you can catch up with and you can keep on top of, not so much of a problem. But if it's something that there ends up being so many tabs open, so many things on the to-do list, that you get overwhelmed and you don't want to respond to people whatsoever, then it's a problem. And because boundaries and expectations in friendships and relationships get set organically in the early stages. So if you're texting someone when you first met them and you're texting like 2 or 3 times a day, they get back to you super quick, you get back to them super quick, that then sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. The way, the frequency in which we text. And the way the human mind works on all of this is if someone then slips outside of that, it's then dealt with as a problem. Because we go back to that thing that we talk about in the fill in the blanks video, that if a person doesn't reply, then you feel like they're ignoring you, they're avoiding you. And if we're walking around with that story playing in our head all of the time, it can then cause friction within relationships. On the flip side to this, if you are the person that is available 24/7, what happens the day that you're not? What happens the day that you need a day off? What happens the day that you feel overwhelmed and as a result you can't catch up with everything? How many times do you log on and see a person has put a status up saying that they're taking a day off social media? Because in this day and age, we treat it like you have to tell people and ask for permission. You have to put it up on your Twitter or your Instagram story or whatever it might be. I'm taking a day off social media, because the last thing we want is anybody out there to feel like you're ignoring them. And none of this should have to happen. We should not be tethered to this thing either by the notifications that are coming through or our sense of social decency, fear of missing out. Because all of these things, again, take up precious processing power up here. We get worried about the person that we've not replied to. We get worried of what if there's too many people? What if there's this? Oh, the group chat. Think about group chats. I've talked about how communication has evolved. The one that I find really fascinating is the group chat. You need to be on top of every message in a group chat in order to feel like you're still part of the conversation. Imagine historically going to the pub with friends, going to the toilet for 10 minutes, and then when you come back at the table going, right, fill me in on every single thing that I missed while I was gone so I can get back in. There's different expectations and there's different pressures that go with the modern forms of communication. And ultimately this could all be boiled down to one thing. The styles of communication may have evolved, but our ability to communicate and to manage many different connections hasn't. As a result of all of this, the communications that we need to do, instead of feeling popular, we feel pressured. Instead of feeling loved, we feel demanded of. And each of these things makes it harder every single time you pick up that phone. So what's the answer to all of this? Well, ultimately, it's about taking time away from communication and knowing that that's okay. Not having to explain yourself before you actually do it every single time. Because you can end up in a big, long discussion, or you can end up in a kind of trying to get everybody brought up to speed in itself before you take time off, which in itself actually makes you need the time off even more, but takes a chunk of that time off for you to having to explain these things to everybody. What I think we each need to do is understand that everybody out there needs to communicate at their own pace. And that needs to be okay. If a friend doesn't text as frequently as you, that needs to be okay. If a person doesn't respond to you between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., that needs to be okay. If a friend doesn't respond to you during their working day, that needs to be okay. This is a two-sided thing where we need to assess the expectations that have developed over time of our friends communicating back with us. And we need to say, oh, well, actually, are my expectations on the level of comeback that that person's given, are they okay? And at the same time, for when it's time to shut off, we need to know that the only person whose permission you need to do that is our own. And we need to be able to do that and walk away. Because it's important to have time to yourself without interruptions, without this thing buzzing or this thing buzzing, distracting you every second from really engaging and being mindful with what you want to do. You cannot be on 100% of the time. If you're trying to be available 24/7, eventually you're going to burn out and you'll be available 0/0. In the long term, it's better to separate these things and to actually have time away. So that's it. As always, I hope this has helped, and if it has, hit that subscribe button so you can be notified whenever new videos come out. Remember, it is priceless to you, but it is priceless to me. I would love to have these type of conversations live with you. In my opinion, I think we have these conversations better live than when I'm just staring at a camera and not getting any feedback. So let's have these conversations live over at twitch.tv/mindsetbydave. I would love to see you over there and go a little bit deeper. You can ask questions live, and pretty much every question gets an answer, providing I have time to get to them. I'll see you down there, hopefully.